What if the greatest hero of the Trojan War never actually made it home? What if the man who tricked an entire empire with a wooden horse spent the next 10 years lost, hunted, cursed, and forgotten, while back home his own kingdom was being torn apart by men trying to steal his throne, his wife, and his son's life? That's the story Christopher Nolan brings to the screen in his brand new epic, The Odyssey, based on Homer's legendary poem. This movie has one of the most stacked casts we've seen in years. Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, Zendaya, Lupita Nyong'o, and Charlize Theron. And today, we're breaking down the complete story from start to finish. So if you're ready, sit back, relax, and let's dive straight into the full recap of The Odyssey. And hey, before we jump in, if you enjoy breakdowns like this one, do me a favor and hit that like button, and if you're new here, subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's get into it. To really understand this movie, we need to rewind about 3,000 years, to the war that set everything in motion. Back then, Greece was ruled by a king named Menelaus. His wife, Helen, was said to be the most beautiful woman alive. Far across the sea sat another great kingdom, Troy, in what we now call Turkey. And Troy's king had 3 sons. The youngest of them fell for Helen, traveled to Greece, and ran off with her back to Troy. When Menelaus found out his wife was gone, he didn't just get angry, he declared war. He raised an army to march on Troy and bring Helen home by force. And in that army was one soldier who stood out from everyone else, not just because he was strong, but because he was brilliant. His name was Odysseus. Menelaus was so impressed that he handed Odysseus command of the entire army. But Troy wasn't an easy target. Its walls were massive. Its army was fierce. Year after year, the siege dragged on. Soldiers died. Supplies ran out. 10 years in, it looked like Greece was about to lose the war entirely. That's when Odysseus came up with the plan that would make him a legend forever. The Trojan horse. A giant wooden horse, hollow on the inside. He had it built, loaded it with his best warriors, and then ordered the rest of his army to sail away, making it look like Greece had finally given up. The Trojans took the bait. They dragged the horse inside their walls as a trophy of victory and celebrated deep into the night. And when the city finally fell asleep, Odysseus and his men climbed out, slaughtered the guards, and threw open the gates for the rest of the Greek army waiting outside. In one single night, Troy fell, after 10 years of failing to break through. But here's the twist. When the victorious Greek army sailed home, Odysseus never arrived. He vanished somewhere along the way. And that, right there, is where the movie actually begins. The story picks up a year after the fall of Troy, in Odysseus's small kingdom of Ithaca. Every other soldier made it home over a year ago. Odysseus did not. Waiting for him are his wife, Penelope, and his son, Telemachus, played by Tom Holland. With the king missing, Ithaca has turned into chaos. Dozens of powerful men have moved into the palace, all of them circling Penelope, all of them hoping to marry her and claim the throne for themselves. The worst of them is a man named Antinous, played by Robert Pattinson, who constantly tells Penelope that Odysseus is dead and that she needs to remarry him, specifically. Penelope refuses every single one of them. Telemachus, meanwhile, still believes, deep down, that his father is alive out there somewhere. Telemachus keeps a storyteller in the court who tells tales of his father's bravery, over and over. One day, a man mocks the storyteller for repeating the same old story, and it nearly turns into a brawl. Antinous steps in, not to help Telemachus, but to twist the knife, telling him flat out that his father is never coming back. Not long after, a mysterious stranger pulls Telemachus aside and tells him something important. If he wants real answers about his father, he needs to go find King Menelaus, the very man Odysseus went to war for in the first place. The problem? Menelaus rules from Sparta, and the journey there is dangerous. So Telemachus decides he needs to become a real warrior first. He goes to train under Eumaeus, an old, one-eyed friend of his father's who knows combat inside and out. When Telemachus comes home, he finds his mother sewing a dress. Not just any dress. Her wedding dress. Penelope tells him she'll only remarry once it's finished. A quiet way of buying time. Telemachus is hurt. Why is she giving up? Penelope explains the truth. She loves Odysseus. She believes in him. But she's also the queen. And a kingdom without a king is a kingdom under threat. We get a flashback here. Years earlier, before leaving for war, Odysseus told Penelope that if he never came back, she should remarry, for the sake of the kingdom. At the time, she swore she never would. But years of waiting have worn her down. Telemachus declares that he will become the new king himself. Penelope doesn't argue. She simply brings out Odysseus's old bow and challenges him to string it. He tries. He fails. That's when she reveals her plan. Whichever warrior in Ithaca can string this exact bow will become her husband and the new king. Telemachus is furious, accusing her of rigging an impossible contest on purpose. Penelope breaks down in tears, admitting she's exhausted from ruling alone. Later, Telemachus gets into another fight and is beaten badly. Antinous saves him, purely as a performance for Penelope. Humiliated and angry, Telemachus goes straight back to Eumaeus and tells him they need to find his father. No more waiting. Now the story shifts to a mysterious island, where we finally see Odysseus again. He's been living there with a woman named Calypso, and he doesn't even remember how he got there. Calypso keeps asking him what happened after the war, and slowly, piece by piece, his memories start coming back, told to us through flashback. The fleet splits apart. After Troy falls, the Greek fleet sets sail for home, but the sea is long and merciless, and they lose their way. Eventually, the fleet breaks into two groups, the Island of Giants. Odysseus, leading half the fleet, lands on an island looking for food. They spot a child the size of a full-grown man, and realize, in horror, that the locals here are giants. A brutal fight breaks out, and many of his men are killed before the survivors escape by ship. The Cyclops. Starving, they land on another island and follow a sheep into a massive cave stocked with food. Odysseus stops his men from eating without permission, a decision that turns fatal because the cave belongs to a one-eyed giant, the Cyclops Polyphemus. He seals the entrance with a boulder and, when he hears the men, grabs and devours several of them. The next morning, half the crew slips out while the sheep are let out to graze, but Odysseus goes back in for the rest, and they end up trapped again for another night. So that night, while the Cyclops sleeps, they blind him with a burning stake. The next morning, the giant, now blind, unknowingly lets his sheep and the hidden men clinging beneath them pass right through the cave entrance to freedom. Menelaus's account. Back in the present, Telemachus finally reaches King Menelaus, who tells him the full story of the wooden horse, and praises Odysseus as the true reason Troy fell. But when Telemachus asks what happened to his father after the war, Menelaus admits he doesn't actually know, only that rumors suggest Odysseus is either dead or trapped somewhere. Telemachus leaves crushed. Circe's island. Back in the flashback, the crew reaches another island and finds a house full of eerily calm wild animals. An old woman, the sorceress Circe, welcomes a group of the men in and feeds them, and they transform into pigs right in front of us. Meanwhile, Odysseus is off hunting what he thinks is a deer, only to discover, after killing it, that it was actually a man. Realizing the island is cursed, he rushes back and confronts Circe. He finds a caged crow, which turns out to be her sister. When he threatens the bird, Circe panics and agrees to restore his men in exchange for its safety. She keeps her word, and explains she only turned his men into animals because she assumed they were raiders coming to plunder her home. Before he leaves, she gives him crucial directions. Sail north, to the place where day and night meet, and perform a blood sacrifice to summon the spirits of the dead. They'll show him the way home. But she warns him, only he will make it back, not his men. Odysseus refuses to accept that. The land of the dead. Following her instructions, Odysseus and his crew sacrifice 2 sheep and summon the spirits of their fallen comrades from the war. But the spirits, bitter that the living get to go home while they cannot, turn hostile and try to drag the men down with them. They barely escape back to the ship. Whirlpool, monster, and the sacred cattle. They dodge a massive whirlpool by steering toward a rocky sea mountain, only to be attacked there by a monster that devours several more of the crew before disappearing. They eventually reach an island covered in sacred cattle. Odysseus warns everyone, don't touch the animals, or the sun god's fury will fall on all of them. They agree, but a violent storm strands them there for days, and as the food runs out, the starving men secretly kill and eat one of the sacred cattle while Odysseus is asleep. He's horrified when he finds out, but it's already done. When the storm finally clears, they set sail again, only to be hit by an even more violent storm that destroys the ship completely, drowning every single man except Odysseus, who washes up unconscious on Calypso's island. And that's where his story to Calypso finally catches up to the present. She nursed him back to health, and 7 years have now passed. His memory has only just fully returned. With his memory restored, Odysseus tells Calypso he has to go home. He makes his way back to Ithaca, but disguises himself as a beggar so he can move around unnoticed and figure out exactly what's happening in his own kingdom. What he finds is ugly. Antinous and the other nobles aren't just chasing Penelope, they're actively plotting to kill Telemachus, because his son is standing between them and the throne. Odysseus arrives just in time to stop an assassination attempt, driving the attackers off with his sword, though Antinous slips away. That night, a feast is held at the palace, and the disguised Odysseus slips inside. Antinous, furious that a beggar would dare crash the celebration, tries to attack him, but Telemachus intervenes. During the feast, Penelope actually talks to the beggar, who tells her he fought alongside her husband and describes how deeply Odysseus loved her and their son. Moved, Penelope makes her announcement. Whoever can string Odysseus's bow and fire an arrow through 12 axes, exactly like Odysseus used to do, will marry her and become king. One by one, every suitor fails. When it's Antinous' turn, he refuses to even try, claiming, falsely, that it wouldn't be right to attempt something only Odysseus could do. That's when the beggar steps forward and says he'll try it himself. Antinous laughs him off. Odysseus strings the bow. He fires. The arrow rips clean through all 12 axes. And in that instant, everyone realizes the beggar is Odysseus. Antinous tries to run, but Odysseus had the doors sealed before the contest even started. What follows is a bloodbath. Odysseus, sword drawn, cutting down the traitors who tried to steal his kingdom, kill his son, and force his wife into marriage. He's outnumbered, and by the end he's badly wounded, but every single one of them falls. Bleeding and exhausted, Odysseus finally finds Penelope. She sees him, really sees him, for the first time in over a decade, and she's overjoyed. But moments later, weakened by his wounds, Odysseus collapses and dies in her arms. And that's how the movie ends. And that, guys, was the complete story of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this recap, and if you've already seen the movie, I'd love to hear how you felt about that ending. If you've got other movies you want me to break down next, drop your recommendations in the comments too. I read every single one. If this video helped you out, do me a solid and smash that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Hit subscribe and tap that bell icon so you catch every new recap the moment it goes live. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.